Uh, lonely people run after people, things, and achievements that they believe will satisfy that loneliness, try to fill in that loneliness. So this whole concept of loneliness is a very powerful emotion. Whether you guys have ever experienced it or not, it can grip you and keep a hold of you. And sometimes it's comes in different parts of your life. Maybe you never experienced. Maybe you have. Oh, I felt that before. Maybe not right now, or maybe I do feel like that right now. But because there's a difference between being in a room full of people and then just still feeling lonely. Like you just feel alone, even though you're not alone. And so that's what we're talking about in those moments is when this monster can kind of emerge. So I want to ask you guys something about songs. What are songs in our culture and today? What are they mostly about? Like, especially like I think I gravitate more towards country songs. You guys ever pay attention to some of the, like what it's talking about, like the story, the lyrics? Probably not, but I don't either. But if you really look at it, a lot of these songs, all the popular songs, they're about loneliness. They're about, I lost a girlfriend or I lost a boyfriend. I gotta get the man back. I gotta get the woman back, and or hey, I don't need that. It's think about it this way. If you break it down, if it's a country song, it usually ends up with a singer drinking too much and doing something dumb. If it's rock and roll, it usually results in the singer breaking stuff. If it's pop, it usually ends with a singer hooking up with someone else or getting super depressed. I mean, it's kind of like what the song gravitates towards. None of it's really good. But if you really take some of it, real life is similar to that. Because when you're lonely, you do dumb stuff. When you're lonely, when you feel that loneliness, you tend to kind of do things you wouldn't normally do. Because you're trying to not feel lonely anymore. You're trying to fill that emptiness. You're trying to do whatever you can to make yourself feel better. That's why, in these explanation of like if it's a rock and roll song, the singer is breaking stuff because like, well, that's a way to get out the aggression. That's a way to make yourself feel better, right? You just do things to make yourself feel better. But that ends up being dumb stuff half the time. So it may surprise you that loneliness is one of the most dangerous emotions you can feel. Because if you talk about the nature of sexual sin, what drives these sins is often deep loneliness, something that's deep down. You talk about substance abuse. Why do people abuse alcohol and drugs? Because oftentimes loneliness they experience is overwhelming. They try to drown their sorrows, right? They try to drown it out. They try to numb it, not feel it, or whatever. And so this loneliness is a lot of times a root of what becomes of these sin natures. It's what you go to try to not feel that loneliness anymore. And this morning we're talking about an awesome story out of John, chapter 4. And it's the Bible here is talking about something very important on this subject. And it's a story that kind of directly talks about this issue. The book of John is an awesome book to read. If you're not an avid reader of the Bible, which I hope everyone develops that, start with John. It's one of the Gospels, one of the 4 Gospels, and it's different than the other 3. The other 3, if you ever notice, they kind of talk about the same things. It's kind of almost like repeating, but a little bit different because it's from a different perspective. But John takes it to a whole new level because John really goes through Jesus, goes through the gospel more intimately. And so it's an awesome book to really study and to read. So we're here talking about this one story you guys probably know. It's the woman at the well. And the story we look at, Jesus is traveling home after serving and teaching with his disciples in another region of Israel. So that he's like on his way home, right? He's traveling. This is kind of like the backstory. On his way home, he did something very odd for a first century Jew. Very odd. He traveled through Samaria, and that to us that wouldn't mean anything. It's like just traveling, through Parkersburg to get to wherever. It just doesn't mean anything. But back then, it did. Jews hated Samaritans. They viewed them as half-breeds. They weren't real Jews. They were contaminated. A religious Jew of Jesus' day would have walked all the way around that part of the country. They would have avoided it altogether. But Jesus, however, walked right into the heart of it. Because he's Jesus, right? He's not going to be petty like that. So, once again, this just, I bring that to light because this is just another incident, another little piece to Jesus, who he was, and made him stand out above anything and everything that was going on back in that day. And really stands out above anything we do today because he did things out of the ordinary. So, he goes right in, so we're going to kind of pick it up in chapter 4, starting in verse 4. It says this: he had to go through Samaria on the way. Eventually, he came to the Samaritan village of Sychar, near the field that Jacob gave to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, tired from the long walk, sat wearily beside the well about noontime. Soon a Samaritan woman came to draw water, and Jesus said to her, "Please give me a drink." He was alone at the time because his disciples had gone into the village to buy some food. So right here, we're going to stop because he goes to this well, nothing out of the ordinary, he's thirsty. A woman is by herself coming to the well. And it kind of gives us a time frame there, about noon. Now, some things that kind of stick out odd is, why is a woman coming at the hottest part of the day by herself? Typically, you get water at the start of the day, in the morning. Kind of hope you will get enough to last you the rest, all day, and plus it's not so hot. So why is she coming at noon on a hot day when everyone else, all the other women in the village, went that morning? And so if you look at it from a Jew of that time perspective, you're like, well, something shady, something going on here. And there was something different was off, but this is the Middle East, and here is Jesus sitting at this well, and he's a Jew, and he asks her for a drink. He starts talking to her, and it was something you did not do in that culture, in that time. So it's a very proper society. Men and women did not talk to each other in public, especially if they were alone. This situation was incredibly improper. Jesus was talking to a woman, and she was Samaritan, and he was a Jew. So they were talking alone. She was a woman with a very bad reputation. It's probably why she avoided going in the morning with all the other women, and she went in the afternoon alone, because she had a bad reputation in the village. So as we continue here, verse 9, and I lost my spot. Here we go. The woman was surprised, for Jews refused to have anything to do with Samaritans. She said to Jesus, "You are a Jew, and I am a Samaritan woman. Why are you asking me for a drink?" Jesus replied, If you only knew the gift God has for you and who you are speaking to, you would ask me, and I would give you living water. But sir, you don't have a rope or a bucket," she said, "but this well is very deep. Where would you get this living water? And besides, do you think you're greater than our ancestor Jacob, who gave us this well? How can you offer better water than he and his sons and his animals enjoyed?" So stopping right here, obviously, because he asked her for a drink of water, left her shocked and confused. Because she said that. Says, how can you be asking me, don't you know who you are? The Jew refused to have anything to do with Samaritans. She said to Jesus, you are a Jew, I'm a Samaritan woman. Why are you asking me for a drink? She's shocked by this improper interaction that's going on. And at this point in time, the woman is looking pretty dumb with her mouth hanging open, feeling embarrassed. And so Jesus cut to the core of this woman's issues. He used the metaphor of water to talk about what this woman was really struggling with. She was thirsty. Because she kind of used this thing too. She says, this is my father's land. She's trying to talk herself up by knowing the history of that this is Jacob's well, or Joseph's well. This is, how are you greater than our ancestry? She's trying to kind of divert the conversation a little bit. But we know from the fact that she was alone at noon, she was probably not a very good woman. She's probably a loose woman who got around town. We know from a conversation with Jesus that she had been married, and we're going to get in that later on here. But you just kind of know her history, right? Because if we continue on, and I'll probably skip around here a little bit. Jesus replied, anyone who drinks from the water will soon become thirsty again, but those who drink from the water I give will never be thirsty again. It becomes a fresh, bubbling spring with them, giving them eternal life. Please, sir, the woman said, give me this water, then I'll never be thirsty again, and I won't have to come here to get water. Because here's the thing, is that Jesus knew who this woman was. Jesus knew that she'd been married previously. He knew that the man she's with now was not her husband. He knew all this stuff about her. And so he's using this thing of living water as a thing because at some point in time, we all are thirsty. We all are thirsty, and that's what this woman is. He's cutting to the core of what she's really needing. She's needing a drink. She's thirsty. We all are lonely in different ways. We are all lonely deep in our souls, and we don't know how to fill the emptiness. And this woman didn't know how to fill emptiness. That's why she was going from man to man to man to man. Jesus knew this, and so he cut to the core. And so we take this whole idea from this woman, and we are like that too because we're thirsty. We're wanting more. We're wanting to fill our cup with something. We're wanting to fill that void, that emptiness with something. And so, we're lonely deeper in our souls. And so, just painting this picture, sometimes when people suffer traumatic brain injury, they suffer from confusion. At times, while the person is recovering in the hospital, the brain will tell them that they are thirsty, but they don't need the water. They might have an IV. Their fluids levels are just fine, but the brain is confused because of that injury. It will keep telling the person that they're thirsty. So if the hospital staff doesn't kind of monitor that, they're going to keep drinking, and you can kind of poison yourself that way. You drown yourself with water. Things we're made 70% out of, and things that's all over or more, or whatever this earth. We're all around it. It's everything we deal with, and it's a part of us, and it's supposed to be a life-giving element, not a poison. But a broken brain can trick people and lead them down a dangerous path. But we're not all that different than somebody suffering severe brain trauma. Because we keep going for this life trying to find the thing that fills that. And it's not always a good thing. It's not always the right thing. Because deep down, you're thirsty for something, you're lonely, and you're trying to not feel that way anymore. So what do? You do whatever you can to change that. But Jesus used that analogy of you drink from this well, it'll sate your thirst, it'll kind of fulfill you, but only for a little bit, and then you're coming back for more. Right? Women in this time had to go back daily to get more water because they're always running out. Jesus says, what I can give you a drink of is this living water that never ends, that always fulfills, that always sustains. And it does. You might ask yourself, but no, it doesn't, because I've had ups and downs. I've followed Jesus, and then I felt empty again. Well, it doesn't mean the living water is not there. It just means you stop drinking from it. It means that you stop filling yourself up with it. It means that you stopped, wanting it. You stop taking that drink. And that's where we get into trouble. Because this living water sustains us, right? This living water does so much more, because anyone who drinks this water will soon become thirsty again, and the water out of the well, the water that we have in our world. But those who drink the water I give will never be thirsty again, and it becomes a fresh bubbling spring within them, giving them eternal life. If we take this, it's always there, constantly giving us this fresh, take of life. So instead of going for what the world provides for us, let's go after this living water. Because we're all thirsty, looking for something to fulfill ourselves with. And then, of course, you look at this woman's situation, you look at where she's coming from, and you know that the way she's doing, right? She's given into her sinful nature. She's letting the monster roam free. That's why she's with so many different men, and that's why she has a bad reputation. That's why she's having to go at noon in the hottest part of the day to get water to survive, instead of being able to go with the rest of the women in the village. All this stuff is leading up because she's letting that monster be emerged, and she's filling herself up with the wrong stuff. And by doing all that, it's causing trauma in her life. You know that she's broken. And looking at that, we're all broken. Not necessarily our brains, but our hearts. We were created to be close with our Creator. That's the point. We're created to be close to God, to be in a personal relationship, not an acquaintance, a personal relationship with Him. So we're meant to be close. God made us to walk closely with Him. We need Him, and we'll never be fully human without Him. Our hearts are broken without closeness with God. We crave Him. We're thirsty for Him. That's why I've said this before. We always go out in life and we're always wanting to fill that God-shaped hole, this empty hole in our life, and we think we fill it with other stuff, but really we're meant to fill it with Him. And so we're never fully complete. We're never fully human until we do that. Because we think we can fill this desperate emptiness with other things. We're thirsty, and so we drink, and we drink, and we drink. In the end, we're still thirsty. And in the end, we're all broken. And so that's why we need this living water. And that's why He tells her that. It says, you drink from this well, and you're going to keep coming back. But the water I'm providing you, if you accept it, if you accept me, you'll never thirst again. Only when you cut yourself off from it will you thirst again. And so I think a lot of people in this world get kind of confused on this whole situation, this whole story, and they go through life. Well, I tried that church thing, I tried that Jesus thing, but I was full. Yeah, I know the living water. I tasted it, but then it went away. It tastes sour. It's not the living water's fault. It's not God's fault. It's your fault. It's our fault. Because we make the decision, we make the choices to stop getting life from that living water. We mess that up, not God. He doesn't cut off from us. He doesn't cut us off from that well. It's there. And so we know in this fact that Jesus wasn't talking about water. Jesus was talking about her thirst and loneliness. Because that's what he continues on having this conversation with her. If you continue reading it, he has this conversation. He lets her know that I know what you're dealing with, and really you're just lonely. You're trying to fill that void. You're trying to fill that emptiness, and you think by living this lifestyle you're getting it, but you're not filling yourself up. You've been trying to fill the loneliness in your heart with relationships and sex. That's never going to work. The only thing that will fill the loneliness in your heart is me. It's basically what Jesus is saying to her. Jesus cared about this woman so much that he dared to create this very scandalous situation, right? He dared to walk to Samaria, sit down at a well, and converse with a woman, and she was a Samaritan, and they were alone. I mean, this is like, a wrong stamp on so many different ways. And he chose to do this because he cared that much. And so despite the cultural thing, Jesus knew what needed to be done. And he does this, and it delivers a message to us today. Because we may not have that same social stigma, but we have other things. And we all are like this woman at some point in time in our life. We're all thirsty, we're all broken, and we need that living water. We need that living water that he is offering to us. And so the bottom line is this: Jesus is what you're looking for. We were created to be in a relationship with him. Without him, we're empty, and we truly are lonely without him. Trying to fill this loneliness and this need with anything or anyone else won't work. And that's why you may know people that can't not be in a relationship with someone. One relationship ends and they're scrambling to find the next person in a heartbeat, which is never really a good thing to do, because they don't want to be alone. They don't want to be alone. They don't want that loneliness to take over. So they feel, well, if I constantly have a boyfriend or girlfriend, then man, I'll never be alone. So you continue going out. I mean, and that's just using an example as far as relationships. But this goes past that. You just feel that need with anything or anyone. It's not going to work. Your heart is broken, and it's telling you that you're thirsty. But what you really need is Jesus. Because just like how that picture of brain trauma, and it tells your body that you're thirsty, but really you're not, and you just end up poisoning yourself, it's the same way. Your sin nature, your monster inside, is telling you that you're thirsty, and so you keep taking anything and everything that you can to kind of quench that thirst. Eventually, it's going to poison you. Because you're giving in to that sin monster, you're giving in to that sin nature, and that's not good. It's poisoning you from the inside out. And it's going to keep telling you, oh, no, you need more. You need more. You're so thirsty. You're so thirsty. And it's going to really break you up inside. Because you do one sin after the next, one temptation after the next, instead of fully committing yourself to the living water. So what are you drinking? All of us are broken. We all believe that we can fill the emptiness with something. We know it can be filled with something. We've done it. It might have only been temporary, but we know it can be filled. Maybe for you, what you're trying to fill is relationships. Maybe what you're trying to fill it with is addiction. Maybe it's sex. Maybe it's what you find on the internet, what you find on Facebook. You're trying to fill that loneliness and that emptiness with these things. And that's what you're drinking. That's what you're giving yourself. Right? I mean, it's just like anything we do with our body. What we put in is bad. We know pop's bad for us. We know energy drink's bad for us. We know that all kinds of things that we ingest can be bad for us. Does it happen right now? No. It may kind of tear us up later. Whether I fill this water bottle up with water and I drink it, or I fill it up full of mercury. I mean, obviously, it's going to destroy me. Same way with life. Whatever we take in, whatever we drink, is going to affect us. Maybe not immediately, but down the road. So what are you drinking? What is it that you're doing? Your broken heart is telling you that you're thirsty, but the only one that can quench that thirst is Jesus, and that close personal relationship with him. So that's what I encourage you guys to examine what it is that you're drinking, what it is that you're trying to fill in that loneliness. Because if you're giving in to that monster, if you're giving in to that creature inside of you that rears its ugly head, when you're feeling lonely, then that's going to dominate your life. We do dumb stuff when we're by ourselves. We do dumb stuff when we're lonely. Not always physically alone, but just lonely. And so now's the chance you have to stop doing that. Decide, okay, well, I'm gonna take a drink from the living water now, so I can stop poisoning myself. And it is totally possible, guys. You guys know my story. You know the stuff that I dealt with, and I was doing poison after poison after poisoning in my life. And I knew the truth. I knew the truth. I knew what I was doing. Yet I continue to do it. And if I can change, if I can ask forgiveness and receive it, you can too. If I can sacrifice a lot in my life, you can too. If I can fight and fight and fight that monster and those sinful natures in my life, you can too. I'm not that different than you. We have to be warriors. We have to be fighters. We have to go out and continue to resist what is bubbling up inside of us. And you're not doing it alone. You're not going to do it alone. That's what youth group is about. That's what church is about. It's about coming together and supporting and encouraging and helping and being in a positive environment. So you're not just drowning out in that world, seemingly by yourself. So I encourage you guys to ask yourself, what are you drinking? Father God, I thank you for who you are. I thank you for this morning. God, I just thank you so much for what you're doing. I know that we joke about things just being crazy and hectic right now.